Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. It's the France 24 debate. We're speaking in the wake of that New Year's attack at an upscale nightclub on the banks of the Bosphorus in Istanbul. 39 killed, a lone gunman still at large. He's thought to perhaps be of Central Asian Republic origin. With us to talk about it from Istanbul, Yunus Paksoy, chief reporter for the newspaper Daily Sabah. Also with us from Washington, Ilan Tanir, former correspondent there for Cumhuriyet daily newspaper. Max Abrams, who teaches at Northeastern University in Boston, is with us. And from Tripoli, Lebanon, Jana Jabour, who's with the French Political Science Institute, Sciences Po, and with St. Joseph's University in Lebanon, in the southern city of Mersin. This Monday, the funeral for the 22-year-old policeman shot outside the nightclub. Burak Yildiz, his name. They're stirring pictures to see, obviously, a 22-year-old policeman. And Yunus Paksoy, when we obviously go over what happened, one of the questions being asked is, because in the wake of that coup attempt last summer, there's been such a shakeup inside of the security apparatus, so many people who've either been fired, suspended, or in some cases even imprisoned, that perhaps now the people who are in charge of counterterror are not as battle-worthy as before. What are your thoughts on that when you see, in this case again, a very young policeman here was killed in the line of duty?
You know, tying these terror attacks to, to the purge of these Gülenists, these FETÖ members, is ill-intentioned, I guess. We cannot really connect these two separate, things to each other.
But there's been so many people sacked, so many people who've been sacked from the security apparatus. Is Turkey's security apparatus as strong as it should be? To be able to say that, because of these purges, because of these dismissals, there are terrorist attacks, you have to be pretty sure that, these security forces that are working right now are not doing their jobs well. And, this is disrespectful. I'm not trying to, give you any offense, but, this is disrespectful for the security forces that are working right now. So we have to believe in them, believe in their work. And, if these terrorist attacks are increasing in the country, how can we know that, Daesh is not trying to make you say that? Is Daesh trying to, launch terrorist attacks because, it's because of FETÖ purges? I don't think these two things are, connected to each other. So we should not really go into conspiracy theories on this issue. Max Abrams, is it a conspiracy theory to wonder aloud if Turkey's intelligence services right now are as strong as they should be?
Yeah, my natural inclination whenever there's an attack is to not blame the local authorities. It's very easy to do the opposite. Whenever there's an attack in any country, it doesn't have to be Turkey. It could be, the Nice, France attack or the one in Berlin, Germany. There's second guessing of the government. Did they do everything possible? I don't think that you need a mass crackdown, against counterterrorism officials for these attacks to happen. That said, I do think that Turkey has been complicit somewhat in its own terrorism problem. You used the word earlier of a boomerang effect, and I think that that's a fair way to term it. I think that Turkey basically saw the uprising in Syria as an opportunity to forcefully engage in regime change and to overthrow the Assad regime. And for that reason, Turkey, like many other countries like Qatar and Saudi Arabia, were keen to assist the so-called Syrian opposition. And it turned out that an important segment of this opposition was Islamist and Salafist, and they would become Islamic State. And I think that Turkey has evolved on this issue and has been much more anti-Islamic State, but already some of the damage has been done. And Turkey is a very sensible place to attack, not only because Islamic State has grievances against Turkey for opposing Islamic State in Syria, but also because there's rare opportunity in that country to attack precisely because there are so many militants inside of Turkey as well as along the border, in part because historically over the past few years, it has served as the main transit both for foreign fighter terrorists to get into Syria, as well as for terrorists inside of Syria to get out and to go through Turkey and into Greece and along the Balkan, migrant route into the EU. And so Turkey does bear some responsibility, but I don't think that the main reason why is due to Erdogan's crackdown.
With the fall of Aleppo, Erdogan changing tack on Syria in the last weeks, reaching a deal with Russia and Iran on a ceasefire, one that leaves out, of course, ISIS, and where all sides agree to disagree on the future fate of Bashar al-Assad.
We have an opportunity to stop the bloodshed in Syria with a political solution. We must not squander this chance. This is a historical chance, and the window of opportunity should not be wasted.
Ilan Tanir, do you agree that there is a window of opportunity here when it comes to Syria?
Yes, there is an opportunity. Any opportunity for a ceasefire is an opportunity for humanity. What's happening in Syria, I think no need to expand to that, but it is just a big black shame on humanity, and definitely Obama administration is going to take and will be remembered by its failure. Turkey's sharp U-turn and sitting at the table with Russia and Tehran, hopefully already brought some peace to Syria. Let's hope it's going to continue, but obviously there are a lot of questions. South of Syria, eastern part of the Syria are still a lot of ISIS influence there. And these ISIS and the Al-Qaeda, both Al-Qaeda affiliated groups are excluded from the peace ceasefire. So that means that this war is going to continue. And also there's a big question about Assad regime and what's going to happen, how whether they're going to be able to reach out to the rest of the country. So,
all right, a lot of those questions, Ilan, but let me just ask you on this. As we heard, Erdogan making his separate peace with the Russians, making that separate peace with the Russians. However, back home, ISIS is not the only opponent that Turkey's president has. What should he do when you know that he's got opposition? Obviously, he's fighting against Kurdish insurgents from the PKK. He's also at war with those who tried to stage a coup against him domestically, those close to Fethullah Gulen. What does President Erdogan do at this particular point in time? Does he have too many fires to put out?
That is exactly the worrying point for Turkey. A lot of observers are very much worried about the near-term stability of Turkey. Turkish government right now represents half of the country. Half of the country love Erdogan, and the other half hate. The other half think that they are excluded from the social contract. There are about 170 some journalists are sitting in the jails. 90% about the opposition media have been shut down, including Alevis and Kurdish media. There is a practical war zone in southeastern of Turkey. And when we look at the daily remarks and rhetoric coming out of President Erdogan, we do not see any kind of reaching out. And nobody is trying to heal the country. Nobody is trying to reach out to seculars of the country and the liberals of the country. Everybody is fleeing from the country. So how you are, as a leader of the country, how you are going to able to put together a country that divided in so many ways, and organizations like ISIS are hitting exactly, they know where to hit, such as the nerve centers. Now, after the big massacre in Istanbul, in Turkey, segments are fighting with each other. Nobody is coming and uniting the country. This is the real worry about the country's near future.
All right,
May I say something, François?
Yeah, Yunus Paksoy.
I'd like to give you a statistic, from the earlier question. You asked whether Turkish security forces are weak or not. There was a statistic, released by Turkish Interior Ministry in late November 2016, and they said Turkish security forces prevented 258 terrorist attacks alone in 11 months of 2016. So, it should give you an idea whether,
Sure.
these security forces
Sure,
are weak or not.
but Yunus, but the point we're talking about now, let me just, because it's important.
I'd like to talk about, what İlhan Taner said as well. Mr. Taner.
How do you get a consensus at this particular point in time? ISIS preying on the fact that Turkey's a divided nation. You agree with him on that?
No, I don't. He is living in the U.S. and I'm pretty sure that he hasn't been to Turkey for a long time, because he's saying that everybody's fleeing the country. The southeast of Turkey is a war zone. Is a war zone, and Turkey is divided, and people are in crisis, etc., etc. That is not true, and you're playing into the hands of Daesh terrorist group when you are making such statements on television or in your column if you're writing anything.
But it's true that there are journalists and intellectuals who are behind bars right now, and not just those who are related to or linked to that failed coup attempt. It's an important question. We know quite well that there are dozens of people, in disguise of journalists, they are, lending help to the PKK. They are lending help. They are whitewashing the activities of FETÖ, Gülenists, and the PKK. So when we are looking at the situation, can we really say that these people are, doing journalism? Is this activity journalism? Are you labeling there was a journalist, a close friend of İlhan Taner, Can Dündar. He was accusing the Turkish state of, supplying arms to Daesh. And then after that, before the court, before the judge, he said that I don't know any of those claims. I don't know where they came from. Is this normal? There are many journalists like this. All right. There's certainly a lot of journalists also behind bars right now. Jana Jabor, let me ask you this question about what we've seen. In fact, in the reaction to the attacks, we've seen a divided Turkey. We've seen the government having to crack down on those who've applauded the attack. The prime minister taking to Twitter to tell people to stop doing it, and criminal investigations being opened. And something else, Jana Jabor, a Friday sermon that was read out in more than 80,000 mosques across Turkey, denouncing celebrations of Christmas and New Year's as un-Islamic. What are your thoughts on that? All right, we seem to have lost Jana Jabor again. Jana, can you hear us? All right. Well, apologies for the technical problems on that. İlhan Taner, your reaction to that, and we've seen that religious authorities after the attack have come out strongly to denounce it and have called for the national unity that you were espousing earlier. But before the attack, we saw a bitter divide when it comes to issues like Christmas and New Year's celebrations.
One of the Turkey experts in Washington, D.C. stated today that the environment, climate in Turkey very much look like the Trump presidency. After the Trump campaign, election campaign, race Islamophobic attacks increased in Turkey. And I'm sorry, in US. And in Turkey, yes, recently, before the New Year's celebrations, when we look at the media, especially the government media, which is government media practically right now 80-90% of the media, because all other opposition media shut down. And you can see from social media or the newspapers and the headlines, front pages and on TVs, all this really big pressure going after those who brave to celebrate New Year's, and those who are in Istanbul and other cities stated, talk about it, how this year, especially climate before the New Year's, very much under the pressure, and people mostly stayed at homes. After that, only after this unfortunate event, massacre happened in Istanbul, the leader of the Turkey's religious directorate came out and finally condemned. Hopefully, obviously this is very late, but it's not too late. If they're going to want to see a united Turkey, they have to start embrace, even though they disagree with other styles of people, they have to respect that. And as a religious chief top imam of Turkey, you have to be very careful if the pro-Islamic or Islamist media are going after the others, liberals and seculars. They had to intervene, and they stop condemning others people's lifestyles.
All right, now, Max Abrams, your thoughts. Where's Turkey headed right now as it deals with this crisis?
Sure. I mean, I think that this is like Humpty Dumpty, putting the pieces back together again. I mean, your general question is, what does Erdogan do now? If we were advising him, and how much confidence would we have in him to be able to put out all of these fires, or whatever you want to call it? I think Turkey really has its work cut out for it. Counterterrorism is extraordinarily difficult. And that's because it's very, very easy to mount an operation, especially when you have a gun, to go into, a nightclub and shoot people, or use a truck, or blow yourself up. And so it's very, very hard. And so once a country reaches a critical mass in terms of having a sizable number of people who do want to commit terrorist attacks, whether they're Kurdish or whether they're Islamist, the reality is that there isn't that much that the government can do to make its citizens safe. I think in the long term, Islamic State is going to get routed out of Iraq and in Syria. The group is getting attrited very rapidly. And I think that in the long term, that will benefit the safety, not just of Turkey, but of the world. But in the shorter term, though, you're going to see a diffusion of militants from that organization, and many of them are going to want to return to Turkey, either as a final destination or to continue on to other countries like Germany or Greece or Bulgaria. And furthermore, even beyond Islamic State, there are many radicals. We saw that with the assassination of the Russian ambassador. That guy, to the best of my knowledge, the shooter, wasn't an ISIS guy. So Syria is teeming with terrorists, even beyond Islamic State, and that's going to make Turkey unsafe, coupled with the Kurdish problem, which doesn't seem to be going away.
And on that point, Max Abrams, we have an incoming president in the United States who has said he doesn't have a taste for foreign conflicts, but also says he wants to fight ISIS. How do you see Trump-Erdogan relations?
Well, I mean, they do have some similarities. They both feel embattled by Islamist terrorists. They're both operating in putative democracies, but have sort of a taste for authoritarianism. Both of them increasingly are turning to Russia, at least to work in some bilateral fashion against the terrorists. And so, this relationship could work out especially on the one issue which really seems to unite countries around the world, and that is that Islamic State is no good. Once the militants become slightly more moderate, when you're talking about, Nusra or Arar al-Sham, that's when the international consensus really begins to fracture. And over those types, the so-called rebels, I do think there'll be continued discord between the U.S. and Turkey under Trump.
All right, unfortunately, we're out of time. So many more questions. Max Abrams, I want to thank you. I want to thank Yunus Paksoy for being with us from Istanbul. Our thoughts go out to the people of Istanbul and to Turkey after this attack.
Yeah,
Ilan Tanir for joining us from Washington, D.C., and Jana Jabbour in Tripoli, Lebanon. Stay with us. Our Media Watch segment is next. And we say hello and Happy New Year under difficult circumstances,
Indeed.
of course, if you're in Turkey these days, to James Creedon.
Hi, François. So we're just looking at how this is playing out basically on news, websites and social media. Obviously, a lot of coverage at the moment of the profile of the killer, the suspected killer who is still on the loose, and a lot of photos doing the rounds of news websites in a bid to track this guy down, still on the run after the 39 deaths that he was responsible for at the Raina nightclub on the banks of the Bosphorus early on New Year's morning. Details emerging as well on social media by various journalists. Céline Guérit, working part-time for the BBC, saying more details emerging on the attack. The gunman came by taxi, fired up to 180 bullets, left his gun behind, and the whole attack took some 7 minutes. So the grisly details, the photos of the perpetrator, the suspect at least, doing the rounds on social media.
Two-thirds of those killed were foreigners.
That's right. And indeed, in each of the countries, you have a focus on their own particular victims. I'll get to some of them in a second, but just some other countries first. No Italians amongst the dead, but Corriere della Sera speaking about the massacre of the youth, ragazzi, the youth being targeted. It was mostly young people at that nightclub on the banks of the Bosphorus. Die Welt in Germany speaking about the liberal heart of Turkey being struck. Meanwhile, L'Orient Le Jour, there were 3 Lebanese amongst the dead. They spoke to François Asmar, who you can see here, who played dead in order to avoid being shot. Indeed, he was wounded. That was also the story told by a Delaware man to American media, William Jacob Rack, a 35-year-old man who did the same thing. Whether or not that saved his life, I suppose it's unclear, but it's a reflex that many people had. The Spanish newspaper La Razón likening the attack to the Bataclan shooting in Paris. Of course, places for nightlife do seem increasingly to be targeted by the Islamic State organization. As this headline says, terrorism, places of nightlife, targets for Daesh. And just getting to now, François, the various, there's lots of cartoons as well, of course, but the individuals who were various individuals. These are 2 Indians, one of whom was a Bollywood producer. They are being remembered on social networks. This is a catalogue of the various different foreigners that has been updated since. For example, there were 3 Lebanese, but 5 Saudis, 3 Jordanians, 2 Tunisians, and an Israeli who's pictured here, 19-year-old Lian Nasser. You can just see all of these young faces. It's indeed very, very sad. And just to focus on some of the Lebanese victims, they've been getting a lot of attention as well in the Turkish and Lebanese media. This gentleman here managed to save his girlfriend by blocking her from the shots. She survived. In the background of that particular photo, he unfortunately perished. That's another photo of the couple. They were in Istanbul to celebrate New Year's. Elias Wardini is his name, and here he is pictured with another of the Lebanese victims, Rita Shami, who didn't survive the attack. Now, within Lebanese media, there's quite a lot of focus on one particular man, and this shows the extent to which these Islamist terror attacks are a huge source of debate within in the Arabo-Muslim world, because this guy said, well done, these people were in a nightclub and they deserved what they got. Now, what happened afterwards is he became the target of basically the ire of an entire nation, from what I've been told by colleagues on the Arabic channel here at France 24, where he became a hate figure, essentially. This is MTV, which is one of the main Lebanese channels, and the headline there is referring to the fact that he is being basically, for insulting the victims, he has become himself a huge target of attacks online. So not very popular. In any case, I'll just finish with some images of, these are flags at half-mast at NATO. Turkey, of course, a NATO ally, despite all the tensions right now. Some calling for more solidarity that should be expressed online for Turkey, but indeed we do see a lot of "We Are Istanbul" hashtags as well, and expressions of prayer and solidarity.
All right, many thanks for that, James Creedon. I want to thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate. Stay